At 7:11 a.m. local time on June 10, 2025, the Houthis' favorite port vanished in smoke again, but this time it was different. In a single instant, the main cargo pier ceased to exist, erased in a violent eruption of concrete and steel. 2.5 seconds later, the port control building collapsed inward, folding into its own basement. There were no jets overhead, no warning sirens, no incoming aircraft on radar. The destruction arrived horizontally, traveling at 280 meters per second, skimming just meters above the Red Sea. The missiles came from the sea itself, flying so low that Yemeni radar operators never saw them, so precise that the second warhead punched cleanly through 3 meters of reinforced concrete, found an elevator shaft, and rode it straight down into the underground command bunker. Within 10 seconds, Israel had turned Yemen's newest infrastructure investment into its newest parking lot. But how they did it marked a fundamental shift in how this war was being fought. At 6:45 a.m. local time, the INS Magen cut through the Red Sea at 18 knots. Every second carried her 9 meters closer to her launch point, 900 seconds to weapons release. Magen is a Sa'ar 6 class corvette, 90 meters of German engineering refined by Israeli doctrine, wrapped in sharp, angular steel. Each ship costs roughly $480 million, and for that price, Israel gets a vessel that packs more firepower than many destroyers into the footprint of a large yacht. The Germans designed her to be difficult to see. Those angular surfaces are not aesthetic choices. They scatter radar waves away from the source. Add radar-absorbent coatings, and on enemy screens, Magen looks less like a warship and more like background clutter, barely distinguishable from a fishing boat. But radar detection is not what worries the crew most. Their greatest fear comes from above, not from ships or aircraft, but from swarms of cheap drones. 20, 30, sometimes 50 at once, attacking from multiple directions, overwhelming defenses through sheer numbers. That is where Magen's real advantage comes into play. Mounted high on her superstructure are 4 flat panels housing the ELM 2248 MF Star radar, the most advanced naval radar Israel has ever deployed. Each panel contains 450 transmit-receive modules operating in perfect synchronization. Where older rotating radars refresh their picture every 2 to 3 seconds, MF Star updates 30 times per second. It can track 300 targets simultaneously, more than enough to handle even the largest drone swarms the Houthis can assemble. But today, drones were not the concern. Today, Israel was doing something the Houthis were not prepared for. Since October 2023, every Israeli strike against the Houthis had come from above. F-35s dropping GPS-guided bombs from 40,000 feet. 15s launching standoff missiles from safe altitude. Houthi defenses adapted accordingly. Soviet-era P-14. Tall King radars scanned high-altitude sectors. SA-6 batteries pointed skyward, optimized to intercept aircraft. Their entire defensive posture assumed the threat would arrive from above. Their chin was up. Israel's strike was a brutal uppercut. At 7 a.m., target data flowed across the Combat Information Center aboard Magen. The ship sat exactly where she needed to be, 300 kilometers from Hodeidah port, well beyond the reach of any Houthi coastal defense missile. Through secure satellite links, she received real-time intelligence from Israeli reconnaissance assets. Thermal imaging painted the port in exquisite detail. Every heat source glowed on screen, generators, vehicles, and one underground facility radiating far more heat than frozen fish storage ever should. At 7:03 a.m., the order finally came. Fire. At 7:04, the first missile erupted from its launch cell. The Gabriel 5 rode a column of flame straight up, accelerating at 15 G-forces. Its solid rocket booster burned for exactly 3.4 seconds, taking the missile from 0 to Mach 2.1 before separating cleanly. A compact turbojet engine hidden beneath the fuselage ignited, throttling back to subsonic cruise to conserve fuel. 1.8 seconds later, a second missile followed from a separate cell, timed precisely to prevent exhaust interference. Self-inflicted fratricide is embarrassing at the best of times. By 7:05, both missiles had completed their initial climb and tipped forward toward the horizon. This was where the real deception began. Instead of climbing to altitude like a traditional cruise missile, the Gabriels dropped to 3 meters above sea level. At that height, they flew below the radar horizon of any ground-based system more than 40 kilometers away. They also did not fly straight. A direct route would have taken them across 278 kilometers of open water, where any fishing boat with a radio could have reported them. Instead, they followed a carefully programmed path. First, threading between two cargo ships 80 kilometers out. Second, using Kamaran Island as a radar shield. Third, exploiting a gap in coverage where two separate Houthi radar sites failed to overlap. Each detour added distance, but each one bought invisibility. Guidance was redundant by design. GPS provided primary navigation, fully expecting jamming near the target. An inertial navigation system tracked every movement using precision gyroscopes. Terrain-matching radar constantly compared sea and coastal features against stored maps. The missile always knew exactly where it was. Houthi defenses were not non-existent, but they were misconfigured. Their coastal network was a patchwork of Soviet leftovers and newer Iranian systems, all optimized for the wrong threat profile. Their radars searched from 1,000 meters upward. Below that, they trusted terrain to provide protection. That assumption works against aircraft. It fails catastrophically against sea-skimming weapons. At 7:09 a.m., the missiles reached their final approach point, 22 kilometers from the target. Turbojets spooled to maximum thrust. This was the most dangerous phase. Close enough now that even a half-asleep operator might notice something moving at 280 meters per second. Infrared seekers activated, seeing the world in heat instead of light. Through the morning haze, Hodeidah Port appeared as a constellation of thermal signatures. The guidance computers were not just searching for the port, they were searching for specific features: an L-shaped pier retaining heat from the previous day's sun, a control building with an unnaturally warm basement. Artificial intelligence-driven pattern recognition filtered decoys in milliseconds. At 7:10 a.m., 10 kilometers from impact, active radar seekers powered up. Compact electronically scanned arrays operating in K-band painted their targets with narrow beams designed to minimize detection. Both missiles locked simultaneously. The Houthis now had exactly 41 seconds. Their defenses were, to be generous, inadequate. 2 anti-aircraft guns ringed the perimeter, Soviet designs from an era when the Beatles were still touring. Minimum reaction time was 6 seconds, assuming crews were present and alert. One operator manned a Strela 2 shoulder-fired missile, a heat-seeker that might have threatened a helicopter in 1968. Against sea-skimming missiles moving near Mach 1, it was functionally useless. At 7:11 a.m., 5 seconds from impact, the missiles made their final adjustments. The first shifted 2 degrees right, targeting the pier's primary load-bearing column. The second nosed down 5 degrees toward the buried command bunker. Guards heard the missiles seconds before impact, a tearing sound with no time for comprehension. The first missile struck exactly where the structure could least tolerate damage. Engineers had studied the pier for months, identifying critical stress points. The 200-kilogram warhead detonated at the junction of the pier and its main support. A pressure wave traveled through concrete at 6,900 meters per second, roughly 20 times the speed of sound in air. The material did not crack. It disintegrated. Reinforcing steel became hypersonic shrapnel. Within 50 milliseconds, 60 meters of pier collapsed into the harbor. 2 seconds later, the second missile arrived. It punched through floor after floor as onboard sensors counted penetration depth. 3 meters, 5 meters, 8 meters. At 10 meters, exactly where intelligence placed the bunker, the delayed fuse triggered. In open air, that warhead would have produced a lethal radius of roughly 150 meters. Underground, physics behaved differently. The blast wave reflected repeatedly, amplifying pressures beyond 500 psi. Reinforced concrete flowed, steel beams folded. Above ground, the port control building lost its foundation and imploded downward at 9.8 meters per second. Secondary explosions rippled as fuel lines ruptured and electrical systems arced. A backup generator dutifully attempted to restore power, adding hundreds of liters of diesel to the inferno. By 7:11 and 30 seconds a.m., Hodeidah Port had been permanently reorganized. The pier existed only on maps. The control building was a crater. The command center was a hole. But this was not a one-round fight. At 7:51 p.m., 30 kilometers inland, a massive truck-mounted launcher raised its cargo toward the sky. The Burkan 3 ballistic missile, 12 meters long and weighing 7,000 kilograms, pointed toward Israel. The Burkan 3 began life as a Soviet Scud, then absorbed decades of Iranian modification. Range extended to 1,200 kilometers, propulsion redesigned, guidance upgraded, warhead increased to 250 kilograms, capable of leveling city blocks. The launch crew worked fast. American satellites were watching. Israeli intelligence was listening. At 7:52 p.m., the launch command was given. Solid fuel ignited instantly. The missile leapt from the launcher at 5G forces, crushing internal components against their mounts. Within 4 seconds, it was supersonic. The crew did not wait to watch. They were already racing for cover. 5,000 kilometers above Earth, an American early warning satellite saw the exhaust plume instantly. Within 0.7 of a second, alerts propagated across secure networks. Washington to Tel Aviv to Israeli Air Defense Command, total latency, 2.1 seconds. 4 seconds after launch, Israel's Green Pine radar acquired the target. Each array stands 9 meters tall, weighing 60 tons, but mass is not what makes it formidable. Power is 2 megawatts of output, capable of tracking a baseball at 500 kilometers. Electronic beam steering scanned vast volumes of sky in milliseconds. By the time the Burkan reached 20 kilometers altitude, its trajectory was already solved. Apogee, 185 kilometers. Impact point, Greater Tel Aviv. Time to impact, 7 minutes, 23 seconds. The system assigned the threat to an Arrow 3 battery. Arrow 3 does not intercept missiles in the atmosphere. It intercepts them in space. At 8:03 p.m., as the Burkan passed 42 kilometers altitude, an Arrow 3 interceptor roared off its launcher. Acceleration exceeded 8 G-forces. The first stage burned for 40 seconds, pushing the vehicle through air so fast it turned plasma white. At 60 kilometers, the first stage separated. The second ignited immediately. By 80 kilometers altitude, officially in space, the interceptor traveled at 2,800 meters per second. Then the kill vehicle separated. No warhead, no explosives, just sensors, computers, and divert thrusters capable of centimeter-level adjustments at orbital speeds. The infrared seeker activated. Against the black of space, the ballistic missile glowed from residual heat. Calculations updated 1,000 times per second. Corrections executed in millisecond bursts. At 8:05 p.m., 72 kilometers above the Mediterranean, the intercept occurred. Closing velocity exceeded 3,400 meters per second. The impact delivered the equivalent energy of 200 kilograms of TNT concentrated into a fist-sized point. The missile did not explode. It came apart. Debris scattered. The warhead tumbled harmlessly into the sea 37 kilometers offshore. Radar tracked every fragment. None posed a threat. Tap to watch for more.